Hello and welcome back to the Just Follow Joy podcast. My name is Ariana Joy. I'm your host and I'm a human design reader and teacher. And today we are talking to my friend Kelsey Aida all about money manifestation, basically how to become a money magnet. Because who amongst us does not want to attract more prosperity into our lives, right? I think that's something that most of us would look forward to and probably already want. And I want to say real quick too that if you like everything we're talking about and you like learning from Kelsey, and honestly, in my opinion, how could you not? She just re-released her very popular Money Magnetics course. And so I'm going to have a link down below to that. And she's also gifting you a free Money Magnetics meditation. And she's already heard some really great things back from the people who have dove into it. It's only 15 minutes long, and it's a great way to get into the vibration of the prosperity that you really want to draw into your life. So we're going to dive into that. Before we do, I just want to say that if you like this episode, if you like the show, if you love the show, it would be so helpful if you could like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you are listening on another platform, leave some kind of positive feedback there. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I just want to say like iTunes. I don't even think iTunes exists anymore. But if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you could leave a 5-star review and comment, that would be super helpful and always appreciated. But with that being said, let's dive in and hear from Kelsey. Kelsey, I'm so glad to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks, girl. Me too. It's gonna be fun.
It's going to be so much fun because we are talking about something that Kelsey loves, that I love. I think everyone loves money for the most part. But in particular, we love talking about manifesting money. And Kelsey is someone who's really familiar with it. She's really good at it. I would call her an expert at it. So we're going to jump right in. So
Yeah.
I know that you've talked about, because you're in a place now where there's like incredible abundance in your life. I think a lot of people would look at where you're at and say like, that's awesome. I'd really like to get there. But can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit more about your money journey? Because I know there might be some people listening, especially as we go through the rest of this episode, thinking like, yeah, that's great, but maybe not me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So my money journey, I grew up pretty just like basic middle class, nothing really special or fancy going on there. Both my parents were always self-employed, which I do think has programmed me for success for working for myself because I'd seen my parents do it. I didn't really know anything different. Like to me, it wasn't so different or risky. It was just like, oh, well, everyone in my family is self-employed, so it makes sense for me to be self-employed, so I kind of followed in those footsteps in a good way. But at the same time, I definitely did see my dad was in real estate for a long time, and I saw the ups and downs of that. Like, when you
Mm.
get paid, but when you don't get paid, you don't get paid. So you have to be really good at managing your finances. And my mom always worked from more of a place of not having to work, because my dad really took on that traditional role of like financial provider, and he took that like very seriously because I think that's like pretty ingrained in their generation. So I definitely saw that play out in my household.
Yeah.
But my mom worked from a place of, she always worked as an interior designer for herself. So she was like the creative, the artist, working with clients. So I think in a lot of ways, I also kind of took after her, that I do a very creative, different work, and I work one-on-one with people and stuff, which is interesting. So a lot of my programming kind of stems from that. We did live in San Diego for most of my growing up, past the point of being really little. And of course, that was very expensive. I feel like a lot of people in San Diego, maybe you can speak to this and attest to this, are like, other people would look at your bank account and be like, oh my gosh, you make so much money. But then you're like, oh my gosh, I spend so much money because it's so expensive here. So I don't feel abundant. I don't feel rich. I feel like I'm always struggling, and I literally have to surf to like maintain my sanity. And I feel like in San Diego, like the middle class is like,
Yeah,
you're
that's why
either
all the
like,
surfers here are super edgy, by the way. All the
yes,
boarding
yes,
crowd
like the
before they go
middle
to the work, they're like,
class.
this is the only way I can catch. Get the fuck out of my way.
Yeah, like people are like, oh, people in San Diego are so relaxed. I'm like, actually, everyone's stressed the F out because it's so expensive to live there. That's why so many people are leaving. And I'm not like hating on San Diego. I love San Diego. I think people should live there and stay there and make enough money to live there and stay there. But there's just this interesting thing that I've noticed of like, being middle class in San Diego is tough. If you're like
Mm.
upper class, you living in Del Mar, you living in La Jolla, you living in Rancho Santa Fe, that's great. Happy for you. Amazing. I didn't
Absolutely.
grow up like that. So with a family of four, like our monthly expenses were a lot. My dad was making, I guess, what people would say is like a lot, but also spending all of it on the house and health insurance for four people and everything that comes with, living in one of the most expensive places probably in the world to live. And so they were stressed. And I remember there were two or three times when I came home from school and there was a note on the door that my parents didn't want me to see of like foreclosure notices that somehow they were always able to avoid because my dad was in real estate and knew like the process and how to like get it delayed and not let it happen and blah blah blah. But there was like moments where it was almost like you're about to lose your house. So yes, you're living a middle class life. We're not like without food, but at the same time, like you could lose it all because it's just a lot. And there was a point too where we had moved into this house, and of course my mother being the being the designer, right after we had closed on a house we were going to move into, she saw another house that was older, more charming, better view, better lot, and she was like, actually I want that house more, so let's just sell the one we just bought and buy this one. But then the big crash of like 2008 2009 happened, and they got stuck with two mortgages for a year,
Oh God.
and it literally depleted their whole life savings. And that's when like the stressful stuff started happening after that. So as you can imagine, what I interpreted from that was like, first of all, never buy a house if you just bought a house, because you don't know if you'll be able to sell the other one. And also like, wow, that's crazy that my parents had two mortgages for a year and one of the most expensive places to live, just making normal income. And also, like, I never want to set myself up in the position to, not that you can avoid it altogether, but I was just like, I got to find a way to not let that happen to me because that was really shitty, right? So
Yeah. Also,
that's,
the 2008 like economic collapse, anyone who went through that, we all need just go to therapy. Like everyone needs it because that just programs you. That's
if
like
you were
going
alive, go to therapy.
go to therapy. If you were alive in 2008, go to therapy. Yeah, it's just like people that's encoded in us, remembering that like our in everyone was affected by that, and it was in the air and just like everyone remembers that. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and like to no fault of their own, but then that depleted like everything that they had at that time. And luckily now they've rebuilt and everything's fine and they're good and they're living their best life in Georgia and whatever. But it was scary. And they were trying to protect me and my sister from actually knowing what was going on, which I think was a good intention. But then I was like even more like nervous about what was going on because I was like, oh, I know that they're not telling me something.
Yeah.
Um, which I mean, I also don't blame them for. Hopefully, they never hear this podcast because they'll be mortified. I'm just spilling all our family laundry. But basically, so that was kind of my upbringing. And when I started working, I was doing hair. So when you become a hairstylist, if you want to be a good hairstylist, you have to like be an assistant for someone else. And when you're an assistant and you're studying under someone, it's usually like a year-long program and you only make minimum wage plus maybe tips if you're lucky, and you're doing all the hard part of the job. So you're doing the shampooing, the blow drying. Basically the stylist is only doing like the artistic parts of like applying the color or like doing the actual haircut, but that's like the shortest part of the appointment and the least labor intensive. Like the assistant really does the work,
Hmm.
getting in there. So I was laboring for minimum wage. And I remember I also worked part-time at the dry bar, which was also minimum wage, so that I could start building a clientele. And blow drying hair all day long is not the vibe. Let me tell you, that's like the hardest part of being a hairstylist is the blow drying and the shampooing. And when that's all you do with no breaks of like doing color or a haircut in between, oh my gosh, it was exhausting. So
God, did you get carpal tunnel or was it just like
I feel like after all these years, like my elbow's getting messed up, and I'm like,
oh
it's a
man.
sign to start making my exit. But
Yeah.
yeah. So at first I was doing two part-time jobs, and obviously not making very much. I was lucky if I was making like, I don't know, less than $1,000 a month, probably like working my ass
Wow.
off. But luckily I was living at home because I was, in California, and you don't really just move out right away. Unless you're going far away to college. But I ended
Yeah.
up going to beauty school, so I didn't go far to college. I just commuted to this really like prestigious school, and I went
Ooh.
there and I got a great education, and I started assisting, whatever. So that's like my starting point.
Hmm.
Fast forward to now, I'm basically making like what I used to make in like a month in like working with one client or two clients or three clients. So it's not really about like time, because I don't like to sell my time for money and say like, oh, I make this much per hour versus I used to make that much per hour. But it's more just like the consolidation of time and the value that I can provide now whether I'm doing hair or I'm doing this healing work that I do, which I should preface that I'm a multi-passionate manifesting generator with
She is.
several careers going on over here.
Oh yeah.
Um, that it's really consolidated. So now I can make a lot more money with a lot less time, a lot less effort. And also, I just got married. So now I've combined my finances with my husband, who he's a very powerful money manifester. And I would like to take some credit for this because he had some money mentality issues when I met him, that we have since worked through, and now it's all working out for the better. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's been a journey. And it's funny because I've been reflecting on this a lot and I've been thinking like, was I waiting for the manifestation, or like was the manifestation waiting for me? Because
Mm.
it's like a journey of becoming, right? Like I could have charged what I was charging, like what I'm charging now to do someone's hair or to facilitate a session for someone or whatever. I could have done that back then, but I didn't because I wasn't that good, one, and I wasn't that confident, right?
Mhm.
So it took me all these years to become good, to become skillful, to become confident. But technically, I could have done this way sooner, but I
Yeah.
didn't because I hadn't become her. I hadn't become this version of myself yet. So it was really a journey of becoming, stepping into my confidence, growing my skill set, and being open to how money comes and different ways to receive it, and not just it has to come through my work, or it has to come through my husband, or it has to come through an inheritance, which I'm probably not going to get a big inheritance. Like it has to come through
Hey,
this,
never say
that,
never.
this,
You
the
don't
other.
know. They could
You
strike
never,
gold
you
in
never know,
Georgia.
but not counting on it. So, yeah, I basically have just been on this journey of becoming and really like allowing in so many ways, like allowing my passions to be my career, allowing people to pay me more, allowing myself to want more, allowing myself to receive money from my spouse and have that be a really abundant source of income that we don't like keep separate from each other. um yeah, does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
And I love that perspective too. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently because for me, a really big theme in my human design chart is and actually just take a step back, it's all the stuff that you were talking about being like very creative and following your passions and your desires. That's so your channel 4130, which is all about like bringing our dreams and our fantasies to life by like chasing our desires and like feeling
Yeah.
so connected to life through that and really getting an emotional release and like connecting to your spirit through creating. And that's your 41 is your sun gate, so that's like that artistry, that like because you're an Aquarius, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that like very forward thinking dreaminess of like, oh my God, all the things we could create. Let's make this into a reality. That's literally like the 70% of the impact on your chart. That's like a huge thing for you.
Yes, that
That
like
makes
gets
so
me
much
high.
sense.
That
Yeah,
makes
you're
me
like,
I
I
love when you
fly
break it
on
down to me
that.
from the chart perspective because I'm like, I literally get high off that every day. I'm like, the possibilities. That's like where I live.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. And I'm about to like human design nerd out, but this is in the root center, which has to do with like adrenaline and like the literally like the high you get from adrenaline or like this push from your body. So we can like you and I, we have defined root centers. We can get like so addicted to that because it's so fun. It's so good. Like, and it's great. It's not in a bad way, right? Because we can
Yeah.
channel it into our businesses, but it's like this roaring like that we put into our work. But anyway, but
Yep.
for me, one of like a really big theme for me, actually, especially when it comes to money, because it's my Jupiter gate. We can look at yours too, is gate 5, which is the gate of timing and rhythm and like divine
Mm.
timing. So for me, I really have to just be like, I will be there when I'm supposed to be there. And there is something that probably has to happen along the way for it to be the best outcome when I am there. So that's something I've really had to like work with and learn, is just like trusting the seasons of my life and trusting that maybe it is becoming, right? Because I believe that these desires we have, whatever it is, we're talking about money manifestation, but it could be anything. If you really do want that thing, and Kelsey, I'm sure this is probably what you believe too, it's meant for you, right? Like likely there's that future version of you that has it. And so it's only a matter of time until getting there. And so wouldn't you want to like be the best version of yourself before you get there and have it? which I don't always believe in the moment, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to integrate into my life.
Well, and not to just be the best version of yourself until it comes, but to enjoy your time as much as you can while you're like in the space of holding the trust that one day it will come. My opportunity's coming. I already did my intention setting work. I'm doing my best I can to stay in my vibes that I want to stay in to help co-create this reality. And in the meantime, until the opportunity presents itself, like, I'm just gonna enjoy the F out of my life because life is too short to be like, I'm not gonna enjoy myself until I'm a millionaire. That's
Mm,
so dumb. And I wanna say, and I'm gonna put this on me as a personal example, I almost, so the course I just put out, the Money Magnetics, put it out a year ago, relaunching it. So I almost didn't put it out because I was like, I'm not a millionaire yet. So what do I have to teach people about manifesting money?
mm.
Can you believe if I was like waiting for that like permission from my bank account? That's the dumbest thing ever. Why would I gatekeep this information for potentially 2 or 3 more years until I hit that status just to have this weird status that I can say, oh, I'm more credible to teach people about money? When I live in financial abundance every day, doesn't mean I'm a millionaire yet, but we're working on it?
Yeah, we're putting in the work. Oh my God, there's so much I could say about this. But yeah, the whole thing about being, I feel like saying being happy now is a simplification of it. But for me, like for so long, when it came to money, when it came to my body, when it came to really anything, I was like, I can't be happy right now because I don't have the thing I want. And like there was a part of me that was like, well, I mean, I'm sure it's coming at some point, but I just can't enjoy life now. And it's like, that's
Right.
so dumb because if you just look at like forget manifestation just for a second, but if you just look at your life in the everyday, it's like, don't you want to enjoy as much of this as possible? Like for me, I was like, if it wasn't coming anyway, then I would want to enjoy my life as much as possible. That took me so long to just like get into my head. I was just like, no, I'm not going to be happy until one day I took a step back and I was like, if this wasn't even a goal for me, or if I already had the thing, like wouldn't I be happy to look back on my life and just say like at least I had fun, right? Like we're so lucky in this I think so many of us are so lucky to live in this era now where at least from a human design perspective, like it is actually about living your joy. Like it's much less about the quote unquote survival stuff. And Kelsey's always said like it's better like enjoying your life is actually like more important than surviving probably because like there have been people who survive but they're like, well, I'd rather die because this sucks. And so like why don't we just enjoy it as much as we can right now? Like that makes the most sense.
Yes, yes. And can I elaborate on this? Because if anyone's
Yes.
listening, they're like, okay, easier said than done.
Mm.
Here's the holdup. And I call this conditional living. Conditional living is not the way, it's not the vibe, and we're just all gonna promise to stop doing it from this podcast forward, okay? So, conditional living is exactly what you were describing, which is where I'm not gonna let myself feel that I love myself until I lose 10 pounds. I'm not gonna let myself teach a money manifesting course until I'm a millionaire. I'm not gonna feel abundant until I have this much money in my bank account. I'm not gonna feel sexy until, a man wants to date me. I'm not going to let myself feel XYZ good feeling. I'm going to withhold those juicy nuggets of life from myself hostage until the universe gives me what I want. This
Mm.
is like a temper tantrum of a 3-year old. I don't know how we get stuck in this or exactly why we get stuck in it, but I know that on a subconscious level, we think that if we withhold these feelings from ourselves, it's going to motivate us to get or do or achieve the thing. When in reality, if you allowed yourself to feel those feelings now, you would still have all the energy and the inspiration to go for your desire if that's your genuine desire. And you won't have to do it from a place of motivating yourself in this weird backwards, like withholding state. But you could actually just go for it from a place of excitement and anticipation. And that's a totally different vibe that actually is conducive to getting the results that you want and not keeping you hostage to a lower vibrational state than you could access right now.
Mm, yeah. Well, I can definitely speak to like why this happens, at least for me,
Yeah.
because for so long I was just like, yeah, it's just not going to happen. If I let my, I am my father's daughter. And so a lot of
Aren't
my,
we all?
I mean, are your parents, were they born in the US, Kelsey, or are they immigrants?
My dad, Actually, they were both born in the US, but my mom grew up in Mexico, but she was born in Maryland because her dad was in the Navy and they lived here for a period of time and it's a whole thing. But
Got it.
yeah,
Okay.
they're both born here. Mhm.
Okay, cool. Well, anyone listening who has immigrant parents, you understand the immigrant mentality. It's like save for a rainy day, work your ass off now. It doesn't really matter if you're happy now because you create for a legacy. And in human design, that's actually like my sun gate is about like building a legacy for the long term. But that basically for me, what I took that as is like, no, if I am happy now, then I'm never gonna have the
Mm,
motivation to change. Everything's gonna stay the same. And also, even when I learned manifestation, excuse me, I was like, this is just telling the universe I'm fine where I'm at, right? Which is not the case because when you get into the vibration of just being happy, that attracts more of the things that would carry that vibration. And then, it's so I can say that that's definitely the reason it's been for me. But something, Kelsey, I don't know what really like helped you change this for yourself. But for me, it was like really learning the fact that like there's already the potential for the thing anyway, and knowing like for me, just looking at it like it's gonna happen anyway, which like definitely takes a leap of faith, and you can take small steps towards that. But I guess for me, because I got to a point where I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna believe that it's gonna happen, right? Like what else? I've been through
because
so
it
many other
feels
bad feelings.
better. That's a gift to yourself, the gift of belief. Like you can believe it or not. Either way, if it's your destiny, it's gonna happen. So like you might as well believe it before it happens because it will happen faster and
Mm,
it'll become more readily available to you. You'll see the opportunity when it presents itself, and also you'll feel better up until the time when it actually happens instead of making yourself suffer for what, right? Back to this conditional living.
yeah.
Anyway, continue.
That was it. No. But what I
Oh,
was going
okay.
to say too is I think it's so funny that we do this with money in particular because there's like so much money in the world. Like I actually feel like because we have so much conditioning around money and how it's so hard to make and there's only so much of it. But actually like because money is not, in my opinion at least, and Kelsey, I'd love to hear yours about this, but like money is not another person. So it's not like you get their input on this, like, I'm going to be in a relationship with you, or I'm going to build a business with you, or work with you, or something. It's literally just you and money kicking back and hanging out. It's just like, it's an object and an energy that you can attract. And it's funny. It's kind of like, yeah, it's the energy of the money and the abundance that you're working with, but it's kind of like just you. And then there is so much of this that you can tap into. So it's funny because so kind of in theory, this should be one of the easiest things for us to manifest and kind of is. But I would love to hear like your thoughts on that. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what I think about money is that, well, especially anyone who lives in the US or is affected by the US dollar, which is basically everyone on earth
Yeah.
for the most part, um, money ever since it became not tied to gold anymore. So I think it was in the 70s. Originally, like the dollars that were printed was tied to a certain amount of gold, and because gold is a somewhat scarce finite resource, money had like a backing and it was actually real. So for all the dollars that existed, there was a certain amount of gold and it was like equal. Okay. But then once we got taken off the gold standard and they just started printing money, now it's not tied to anything. It just keeps creating more and more and more. And so all of our dollars have become worth less over time due to inflation because now it's not being anchored by anything real or tangible. Okay, so they're just making more money and it's just more money, more money, more money. So, really, like, what even is money? Is it even real? We literally just live in a debt system that's zeros and ones on spreadsheets on the computer. Like what you see in your bank account is not being held in the bank. Like they don't have cash for all that money. That's not even cash. It's literally just numbers on a screen. So you're just manifesting a change of numbers on a screen. Okay, when you think about it like this, it's a little bit less intimidating because you're
Yeah.
like, okay, money's like, yes, it's a very real part of life, but at the same time, it's kind of not real and it's just numbers on a screen. You know what
Yeah.
I'm
We're all just
saying?
playing online poker.
We're all exactly. It's just like
Microsoft
a
Online
poker game.
Poker.
Yeah. So when I think about it like that, it becomes a little bit less intimidating, but also it's more scary that, like, okay, they just keep printing more money. So if I'm just saving money, it's getting worth less and less. And like, you can't save your way to like financial freedom because inflation is just happening so fast. So that's why there are amazing tools that we can use, like investing or, buying appreciating assets that, like, when the dollar goes down in value, your house actually goes up in value a lot because now it takes a lot more dollars to buy that house. So if you're on the right end of the receivership as the inflation is going up, it can be to your benefit, right? Like if you own a lot of stocks and all those stocks get inflated, you just got rich, right? But if you don't own any and all the money got inflated and you just have savings that's now worth way less, you just got poorer. So it's like
Mm.
playing the game to a certain extent. And on High Vibin' at my podcast, which you've been on, everyone should listen to her episode. Um, we were just talking with this woman, Elizabeth Ralph. She calls herself the spiritual investor, and she used to work on Wall Street forever. And her whole thing is like helping people see that investing is spiritual and it helps free up your time and you become an owner and you're empowered and blah, blah, blah. And it was great. And in our conversation, we were talking about how it's really important to make your money work for you, especially in this day and age. And it's no longer a luxury, but also it's like one of the tools or like cheat codes of our time because it's like never been easier to own investments in different ways, especially with internet and all these apps, and people can just do it from home. And there's so many ways to learn about it. So I just wanted to plant that little seed. I don't know where else I was really going with that, but I did want to circle back to the Jupiter thingy you were mentioning earlier because that
Mm.
piqued my curiosity.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I actually I wanted to say something about the like investing as a movement and flow of money versus like hoarding and saving money.
Yeah,
Because I think that is like our tendency in general, right? To like hoard money. Which is fair. I get that
yeah,
because we want to keep ourselves safe.
it's
But
understandable.
yeah, but have you ever, I think I've probably talked about him so many times on my podcast. But have you ever read any books by Richard Dotts? Who
No.
is now, oh, I think you'd really like him. I mean, you know
Okay.
basically everything he's talking about, but
Uh-huh.
really straight to the point, really awesome author when it comes to manifestation. But he was talking about how like you can't really like look at your abundance in terms of like how much you have right now, because if you look, he was like like think of yourself like a business. The biggest businesses in the world, they actually aren't sitting on that much money because that doesn't look good to investors. Like what they want to see is a flow of money. They want to see income, and they also want to see you spending this because it shows that your business is moving and like shaking, like moving and shaking. And my I know someone who works for Salesforce, which is a huge freaking company, and someone asked her like, "Is Salesforce profitable right now?" And she was like, "I don't know." She was just and it doesn't matter because Mark Benioff is still a fucking gazillionaire.
That's the crazy thing about businesses. Like when you feel bad about your little mom and pop business, you're like, oh, I only made $500 this month. Like Netflix is probably negative 2 billion. Okay. So all these businesses are like freaking in the red. If you're profitable by even $1, like you're crushing it. Just putting that out there.
Ooh, I love that. Oh my God, this is the sound bite. This is the
If you're
sound
in the
bite. So
green at
you're probably
all, you're doing better than a lot of Fortune 500 companies who are just like going through debt like crazy, but somehow turning that into money, right? It's a crazy system.
it's so fascinating. Anyway, so yeah, let's talk about the Jupiter Gate. I actually am we have a blog about that went out this week.
Ooh,
But
yeah.
so your Jupiter gate is in gate 44. And basically the idea behind Jupiter is that it's similar to astrology. It's your point of expansion.
Mm.
And it's like magnification, in particular when it comes to financial abundance and human design. Because the idea is that when we're imprinted with the energy of the planets, which makes up our human design chart, that happens via a particle called a subatomic particle called neutrinos. So they carry information from the planets, and then like our human design charts show us like where like what the neutrinos we're carrying from each planet. And so Jupiter is a big ass boy, it's a big boy, and so it creates a lot of neutrinos, and it has the second biggest impact on our chart, and so it plays a really big role in how our aura works. And so our aura, with like human design, is like the study of auras basically. This really determines how you're going to manifest in the 3D world and the physical material world. So when we're talking about Jupiter in particular, we're talking about like how your aura is structured, and then also like how you can use that to create material goods and like abundance and stuff like that.
Cool.
And so Jupiter, though, in particular, like basically is this like internal law or this theme in your life that you need to live in alignment with so that your aura like opens up to more expansion, in particular, financial abundance. And then if you don't live in that, Saturn comes in and slaps you and says, listen up.
Okay, give me the
Yeah.
cheat code. I'm here for it.
Anyone listening, we have a whole podcast episode with Caitlin about Saturn returns, and we talk about this. We talk about Saturn and Jupiter in human design. But basically, so we're looking at Kelsey's gate here. That's gate 44. Gate 44 is the gate of awareness, and it's also the gate of like recognizing patterns. So it's an intuition for patterns that are repeating based on what's happened in the past. So people like you are really, really good. I think you have 20. Oh, no, you only have 44. Oh, this is also why you're so artistic. Gate 44 is the gate of, it's called like coming to meet, I think in human design or I Ching, but it's like about making things pretty. So like this is the aspect of
Word.
marketing. And I've always looked at like, I had a feeling like, because I can always tell with people's sales pages or with their graphics, I'm like, they definitely have gate 44 in their chart because these people tend to be really good graphic designers. They're just good at making the thing that they're packaging and marketing to other people really pretty because the idea behind gate 44 is that you have this intuition of like what's going to happen based on a past pattern, and then you also have a way of saying like telling people, hey, this is important, listen to this happened last time, it's probably going to happen again because I can feel that. And it's so funny, I have gate 44 in my chart too, where it's like, how is no one else seeing that this is going to happen? We were all there
Yeah.
when it happened before. Why are you not seeing this? What the hell? Yeah, and so that's the Jupiter gate that you would that's the theme that you would be here to live in alignment with. So if I saw somebody, with your Jupiter gate, I'd be like, girl, follow like what intuitively you feel are the patterns that you need to like share with people and talk about and in your own life too. You might not even necessarily be talking about it, but just following this intuition for like, I'm sensing a pattern here, right? Yeah.
Yes, I like it. I like it. It's making sense. It's ringing true,
It's
as
coming,
the chart always does.
it's all coming together. But I would love to hear for you, like, what were some, when you started doing like money mindset work or you started focusing on like, oh, manifestation, that's a great way to invite more abundance into my life. What did you start picking up on? And also, how did you identify those? How did those become obvious to you so you could work with those and start to kind of blast through them?
Yeah. So let me talk about a more recent one.
Ooh,
So, because I don't really remember exactly how it was in the beginning or what exactly came up, but there's some more like closer to home, more relevant recent from today. So I'm going to share that example.
yeah.
And it's funny because I've always felt that I was destined for big things. And when I was young, I used to confuse that for like, I'm going to be a famous ballerina because I was training to be like a ballerina my whole life. But then that didn't happen. And then we spiraled and then we became a hairstylist and blah, 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 spiritual awakening, blah, 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 Kundalini awakening, blah, 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 fast forward, all this crazy life that I have now. And I recently, when I was like, okay, I want to take my money manifesting to the next level. Like, I want to play big. Like, I don't want to play just regular anymore. Like, we've been there, we've done that. Cool, whatever, moving on. So I said, and this is a prayer anyone can do, and reach back out to me if it works for you. And I literally just said, universe, I want you to send me the most amount of money in the easiest way possible. That's my new vibe. I
Mm,
am going to keep undoing my beliefs about how I think it needs to happen. I'm going to keep being open to different ways it can come in. I'm going to keep creating new streams of income just so I can have as many doors open to me as possible, as many bridges for the money to find me in the physical. I will create those. But also, like, I'm just curious how easy it can be because I feel like it can be easier than I'm making it, right? We make it harder
mm,
than it needs to be.
yeah.
So I said that prayer, and literally, I kid you not, just a few weeks later, my husband got the opportunity to become a real estate broker for commercial real estate, which before he was doing sales and he was making good money, but like commercial real estate money is like a next level. So that happened right away. And at first, I was like, really just beating up on myself like, man, I asked for the money to come to me and he got this great opportunity, and where's my opportunity? And I was like going back and forth with that whole thing. But then I was like, Kelsey, you asked for the easiest way possible. What if
Mm,
your husband making the money is the easiest way possible? Like, hello.
yeah.
And I was so resistant to that. And I was like, no, but it has to be me. And it's like my undefined ego of like having to prove it to myself, right? Like, it has to
Yes.
be me. I have to prove that I can do it, blah, 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 blah. But then I just needed to shift that. And I was like, Well, that's dumb. This is honestly the easiest way. If I can just live in my creativity, whatever happens with my business, cool, like it is expanding, things are going good, but like maybe he's gonna make more money than me and I need to be like okay with that and I need to actually like learn how to receive because I've
Mhm.
always been like a worker, a hustler, and I've been in most of my past relationships like a provider slash sugar mama. So,
Really?
interesting fun fact. And yeah, so so that happened and now I've been shifting into mode of like, yes, I'm gonna do all the things still, but I'm gonna also be receiving of what I asked for, which was the most amount of money in the easiest way possible, and just let my husband make a bunch of money and not make it mean anything bad about me, and not compare myself to that.
Yeah.
So that's a more relevant, like close to my heart today example that I'm still working on and working through, I would say, because I think there's just this programming from society that like if you're receiving or if you're a woman who's maybe not working or has the option to not work that somehow you're like less valuable or not as ambitious or I don't know, it just seems like it's not sexy to receive and like why receiving feels nice if it actually is like a clean receivership, right? So that's interesting, but to tie back to like the how people can do this with themselves, one of the best questions you can ask yourself when you want to manifest more money is is there any part of me that's not on board with having or making or receiving more money? And then you just be quiet and you listen to all the little hands in your subconscious mind that raise their hand and they're like, me, I don't want more money because that's going to be more problems. I don't want more money because then I'm going to have to work more hours. I don't want more money because this, that, and this. If I have more money, I'm going to have people who only want to be my friends for my money. If I have more money, then I'm going to have to hire help to do this X, Y, and Z thing. And it's like all these stories come up that you probably weren't aware of. And that's your invitation to dive into those and start questioning them and be like, okay, is it really true that if I have more money, I'm going to have more problems? Or maybe if I had more money, I'd have less problems because I could outsource a lot of things in my life, hire more support, get more organized, have people helping me with things? So it's like, diving into each and every piece of resistance that comes up for you when you ask the right questions or when someone like me asks you the right questions, and then questioning those pieces of belief, story, programming, and starting to just kind of untangle them and see if we still need them, if we don't need them. And it's easy to just be like, oh, that's a dumb belief. I don't want to believe that anymore. Throw it in the garbage, moving on with your life. But if it's not that easy, that's where you have to kind of do a little bit deeper work of just like, okay, what would need to change in order for me to believe a more supportive belief? Or what evidence do I need to find in order to get on board with what I want to believe and what I want to think about money? So, like, a perfect example of this is like a lot of people think that rich people are like greedy or whatever, something bad, right? If you think really anything bad about rich people, quote unquote, you're not going to want to become a rich person because in your subconscious mind, you don't want to become a bad person. So you're always going to block it, you're going to sabotage, and you're going to be like, why can I manifest money, right? But then when you learn, oh, I feel like that, like a part of me really feels like that, okay, let's look for pieces of evidence that are the opposite. Who are some people that you really admire that have a lot of wealth, that are doing good things with their wealth, that are doing good things for the world? If you can find at least four people, you can like eradicate the old belief. You only need a couple pieces of evidence to solidify a new belief to yourself if you're evidence based, and then you're off to the races from there. You just fixed it.
I love that. That's very nice. And I
Those
was
are nice.
very nice. And very useful. And I have to go back a little bit to that undefined ego thing because Kelsey and I both have completely open heart centers, also known as the ego center.
It's
And
tough.
it's tough. And I'll tell you for you too. I'm very impressed with you because all of your centers are defined except your heart center. I know we talked about this before, but
I
that means
know.
that all the conditioning energy that Kelsey picks up is like squeezed through this one like tiny center. And it's not like the actual shapes and sizes of the centers are like correlated to the actual energetic center, but like all of them, it's like a bunch of people are trying to get into a building with like one open door and like all other eight doors or other of the nine doors are shut. So I'm very impressed with that. And I have to tell you that I am someone who, even with a different design from you, I feel very strongly in that way. And I'm deconditioning myself around this, that it really doesn't count unless it looks like it came through me. And the thing is, though, and Kelsey, I'm sure you can attest to this too. Well, I don't want to say this is the way you look at it, but for him, I'm like, it did come through me. It just like, we're all me. Everything is me anyway. So it's just
Right.
a different channel in my life. And so opening our mind up to allowing and receiving money, like you said, as long as it's like this clean receiving, it doesn't feel like sticky and gross and like there's
Right.
some
Not
weird
like
energy attached
conditional.
to
Yeah.
it. Because that's possible.
Yeah.
If you're letting it in that way, like it doesn't have to necessarily look like it came from your quote unquote work. Because like using our energy and our aura in the way that's right for us, that is our work. So if you're doing that, like probably that's the reason why this abundance is coming to you, right? Like you are doing that work, even if it doesn't look like what we would in, you know, I was about to say the Western world, but the entire world probably looks like what's like productive on the outside or career oriented or work oriented. And so that's something that I've really had to deal with too, because like I'll get random checks and I'm like, it's not the right kind of money. And I'm like, look, just be great. Let's like
I didn't
fine.
make this money, so it doesn't count.
It
Exactly.
doesn't count. And I also think that, I mean, this is a little bit of a different topic, but you know, when we get like smaller amounts of money, when we're like, I want to manifest money, and then we like get like $20 back on something, we're like, it's not enough. Like that's not
You
what I was
find like 75 cents in the dryer and you're like, cool. Not what I meant when I
dope.
asked the universe for more money.
When you find a lucky penny and you're like, is
But
this
it's
abundant?
actually good. Like, those are
Yeah.
good signs that you're actually opening to more. Like, maybe you need to specify, like, how much more, but still, it's more.
Yeah. Wait, a really funny, I don't think I've ever told this joke on this podcast or this like the story on this podcast, but something about being more specific in your manifestations, in particular because Kelsey is a specific manifester. And then also my friend is a specific manifester, my friend Bailey. One day she called me and she was like so excited. She was like, Ariana, I have to tell you about the thing. And I was like, okay, tell me. And so she was like, so I was in the house and I was like, I hope she doesn't actually, now that I'm telling the story, I hope she doesn't mind. I'm sure she doesn't care. But she was like, and I was like, oh, I just want a wiener. And like she meant the boyfriend. She was like, I just want a wiener who loves me. And her friends were like, but like we love you. She was like, I know, but it's not the same. Like I want a wiener. And so she walks outside their apartment and she was like, and you'll never guess what I saw. She
A
was
wiener
like,
dog?
it was a wiener dog. She was like, it was just a dachshund just standing there.
Wait, can I write that in my book? That's a great story. I
You can go
freaking
ahead.
love that.
It's fine. It's just so funny. She's like, I
Gotta
gotta
be
be more specific
specific.
next
What
time. And
kind
I
of
was like,
ween you're asking about? It's
not the kind of
true.
ween. I'm
I
sure that
got
wiener
both.
would love you too, because they can be very
I do
sweet.
have a wiener dog.
He's oh Otto. He's so cute.
Otto, baby Otto. He's
Oh,
downstairs being a good boy right now. My sister's visiting and he's hopefully just being chill. He was pretty tired when I put him in his little house. So he was like, okay, I'll take a nap.
fine, mom. Ugh, long-haired English creams are so. Oh,
So
that's
stinking cute.
so freaking cute and so sweet. But anyway, for anyone who's not trying to manifest a dachshund, um,
Be specific. Even if you're not a specific manifester, be a little more specific with the
just a
universe.
little more specific. Well, I something that I kind of want to leave people with to start with. So, a lot of us have quite a bit of work to do with our money mindset, right? And things can change in an instant. Who knows? But if somebody came to you and they're like, Kelsey, fuck this. My mindset is in the shitter. My external reality is in the shitter. What do I do? If you had a piece of wisdom to give people to like start with, really, what would that be? What's like something that you'd say they could start with, no matter where they're coming from?
Yeah, so if you're in a real place of frustration, I would actually say take your foot off the gas and shift your focus to a different area of life that does make you feel abundant. Because if you're just so hyper focused on your finances being shitty and trying to manifest better finances out of frustration and just feeling like nothing I do works, I did all this manifesting bullshit, why isn't it happening, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's your cue to take a little break from that specific focus and put that energy into any area of your life where you do feel supported and abundant and build that momentum. So, for example, maybe you have a lot of great friendships, or even just a couple. It doesn't need to be a lot, but that really fills your heart with gratitude and abundance. Like, focus there, nourish those, enjoy that, and let that kind of naturally raise your vibration and shift your frequency so that when you do start to feel a little bit better about your overall life, then you can dive back into the financial specific manifesting. Does that make sense? So it's kind of a workaround instead of just like, I need the money, bah! And you're just like trying to force it. Like, stop trying to force it. I know you need money. We need money just as much as we need food because that's how we get the food, and I get it. Okay. But there comes a point where you just have to check yourself before you wreck yourself and be like, okay, this is not the vibe to be creating from. So let me just first shift my vibe into a little bit more gratitude, a little bit more abundance, no matter how I get there. It doesn't have to be money centric. And then go back to the money manifesting. Then, when you do go back to the money manifesting, I want you to just start fresh and forget everything you think and feel and know about money and just do what I did and start with some sort of prayer of like, universe, send me some opportunities. I'm really open. Send me support, send me knowledge. Like, what's my next step in creating more abundance? And just see what shows up from that. Because a lot of people want everything and we want it now. And Amazon Prime has literally wrecked us into being the most impatient people ever in history's humanity. And we're just like, if I say the affirmation, I'm a millionaire 40 times tonight in my journal and I write it in a specific color according to TikTok, then it's going to happen tomorrow. Like, no, that's not how money manifesting usually works. Usually, what happens is you say, universe, I want to be a millionaire. And the universe is like, cool, on it, got you, it's done, it's going to happen. Here's your $1 million idea, go make it happen. And you're like, oh, but I'm not qualified to do that, or I don't know how to do that, or everyone's telling me not to do that, or whatever. And then you stop the money from coming, right? Before it even has a chance. So it's like there's going to be aligned action along the way. There's going to be deprogramming along the way, but just start with an openness and a willingness and ask for the support and see what shows up as your next best step.
Mm, I love that because that takes so much of the charge out of all this, right? And I think that is the biggest thing, at least I know it is for me when it comes to manifesting anything. And also, I'll say that, I mean, even if you have a defined heart center, something that they say in human design is like people with defined heart centers have like a natural like sense of self-worth and esteem. That's like not true for a lot of people who have defined heart centers. But I will tell you that if you have a defined heart center in your chart, you're a lot less open to the conditioning from the external world, like to feel that pressure around like proving yourself. So if you have undefined heart centers like me, or like Kelsey, especially if it's open, one thing I'll tell you too that's helpful from a human design perspective, and like basically Kelsey's like kind of talking about it here, you can remove the charge by like asking yourself if the amount of money I have has like literally nothing to do with how much I'm worth, and like I will always have enough worth, and like no amount of money or lack of money will prove that I'm worthy. Like, how would I approach this, right? Like, would I let it be easy? Would I let money come in different ways? That's something I'm really working with in learning. So we're doing this together,
Yeah,
listeners.
I love that question. That's a powerful question. That's good. That's
That's
the medicine right there. I like
that's
it.
it. People like you and me. Well, anyway, this has been so incredible. Kelsey, thank you so much for all your wisdom. And also, you have a free gift for us, for our listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a free meditation that you guys can download. I'm sure she'll link to it in the show notes for you guys. But basically, it'll help get you into the frequency of abundance and it'll help to clarify like a next step for you. So similar to what we were talking about, but it takes you through that process every day. And like, I think it's only 13 minutes. It's pretty short. And I get messages from people all the time of like, oh, I got this bonus, or, my husband started making more money, or this is going on, or I finally had the courage to start this business, or like I had way more clients in 1 week than I normally have in like a month, or it's doing cool things for people. So that's a great start. Just meditating less than 15 minutes a day, getting into the vibe, getting into the flow. Because I like to think of abundance and like money flow as like You know in Nemo when there's like the turtles and they have to get into that like flow vortex thing to like go fast to where they're trying to go, but if they're out of it, it'll take them like forever. They won't make it where they're trying to go. So it's like just popping in there, right? We're just gonna pop in there, not even 24/7, just 15 minutes a day at first, then 30 minutes, then an hour, then majority of the day, and then you're just living in that flow. So use that visual for all my millennials out there who watch Nemo.
Let's be honest, everyone loves Nemo. Everyone, you know what she's talking about. Don't pretend just because you're like 47, you're like, no, I don't know. I don't know Finding Nemo. Sorry. My friends were literally watching Migration the other night, which is, yeah, the CGI about, or the, I was about to say stop motion, whatever, the animated film about the birds.
Yeah,
Of the bird family, and it was so, and then the next they watched Puss in Boots. I'm like, wow, Pixar really just transcends age and generation, doesn't it?
it does.
But anyway, awesome. And then definitely check out Kelsey's Money Magnetics course. I was reading some of the testimonials for that too, and people have seen really cool stuff happen with it. So
Yeah.
that is awesome. Kelsey, you rock. Thank you for being
Thanks.
on.
Thank
And
you.
everyone listening, you rock. And I'll talk to you next time.